Hi guys, welcome to my Vlogmas Day 12. Stay tuned for what I'm going to say about fun facts on Charlie Brown's Christmas. What's it have to do with Charles Schulz not really liking animation, Charlie Brown's head, Coca-Cola, Willie Mays, laugh tracks, Snoopy's voice, jazz music, and the embarrassment of a scene. And how about CBS's hating Charlie Brown's Christmas? And how many watched Charlie Brown? And what happened to the voice of Charlie Brown? Stay tuned. Hello everybody, welcome to my Vlogmas Day 12. Now, I don't know if Vlogmas, if you're supposed to do voiceover stuff, but I thought this was interesting. There's some facts about a Charlie Brown Christmas that I thought was pretty interesting, and since it's nearly Christmas, and probably everybody has seen a Charlie Brown Christmas at one time or another, I thought I would share a few of these fun facts. Now, it was more than 50 years ago that this show premiered on CBS on December 9th, 1965. The Charlie Brown Christmas remains one of the most beloved holiday specials of all time. Like Charlie Brown himself, the flaws, scratchy voice recordings, rushed animation have proven to be endearing. Now, let's look at some of the facts about Charlie Brown. Now, the animator behind not the animator, but the man behind Charlie Brown was Charles Schulz, and he wasn't really interested in getting into animation. Since the debut of Peanuts in 1955, Charles Schulz and the United Press Syndicate had gotten a steady stream of offers to adapt the characters for film and television. The artist also was directly petitioned by young readers who would write Schulz asking when Snoopy would come to some kind of animated life. His stock reply was, "There are some greater things in the world than TV animated cartoons." Okay, so number 2, Willie Mays played a part in getting it made. Schulz capitulated. Wow, so that's a big word for me. Capitulated to a full-length special based on the professional repetitions of his 2 collaborators. The cartoonist had seen and enjoyed executive producer Lee Mendelssohn's documentary on baseball player Willie Mays, A Man Named Mays. When Mendelssohn proposed a similar project on Schulz and his comic strip, he agreed, but only if they enlisted Melendez of the Ford commercials. The finished documentary and its brief snippet of animation cemented Schulz's working relationship with the two and led Schulz to agree when Mendelssohn had called him about a Christmas special. Number 3, CBS and Coca-Cola only gave them $76,000 to produce it. When Coke executives got a look at the Schulz documentary and caught Charlie Brown on the April 1965 cover of Time, they inquired about the possibility of sponsoring an hour-long animated holiday special. Melendez felt the short lead time, only 6 months, made it impossible. Instead, he proposed a half hour, but had no idea how much the show should be budgeted for. So when he called his colleague Bill Hanna of Hanna-Barbera fame for advice, Hanna refused to give out any trade secrets. Melendez wound up getting a paltry $76,000 to cover production cost. It evened out because Schulz, Menendez, and Mendelssohn and Melendez wound up earning roughly $5 million total for the special through 2000. Number 4, a Charlie Brown Christmas was going to have a laugh track. In the 60s, it was standard to produce, when you produced a show, to lay a laugh track over virtually any half-hour comedy, even if the performers were drawn in. Like the Flintstones was among the series that used a canned studio audience to help cue viewers for jokes. When Mendelssohn told Schulz he didn't see the Peanuts special being any different, the artist got up and left the room for several minutes before coming in and continuing as if nothing had happened, and Mendelssohn got the hint. Number 5, Snoopy's voice is just sped up nonsense. The early Peanut specials made use of both untrained kids and professional actors. They used some professional actors and some regular kids coached by Melendez in the studio. When Schultz had told Melendez that Snoopy couldn't have any lines in the show, he's a dog, and Schultz's dogs didn't talk. The animator decided to bark and chuff into a microphone himself and then speed up the recording to give it more of a emotive quality. Number 6, Charles Schultz hated jazz. The breezy instrumental score by composer Vince Guaraldi would go on to become synonymous with Peanuts animation, but it wasn't up to Schultz. He left the music decision to Mendelsohn, telling a reporter shortly after the special aired that he thought the jazz was awful. Number 7, Charlie Brown's head was a nightmare to animate. Because Melendez was unwilling to stray from Schultz's distinctive character design, which were never intended to be animated, he found himself in a contentious battle with Charlie Brown's noggin. Its round shape made it difficult to depict Charlie turning around. As with most of the characters, his arms were too tiny to scratch his head. Snoopy, in contrast, was free of a ball-shaped cranium and became the show's easiest figure to animate. Number 8. There's one scene that Charles Schultz was embarrassed by. He noticed that in scenes where Charlie Brown is standing near his tree, the branches appear to grow from moment to moment. The goof annoyed Schultz, who blamed the mistake on 2 animators who didn't know what the other was doing. Number 9, A Charlie Brown Christmas almost got scrapped by Coke. The ad agency behind Coke paid them an impromptu visit while they were midway through production. Without hearing the music or seeing the finished animation, the ad man thought it looked disastrous and cautioned that if he shared his thoughts with Coca-Cola, they'd pull the plug. Mendelsohn argued that the charm of Schultz's characters would come through, so the exec kept his opinion to himself. Number 10, CBS hated A Charlie Brown Christmas. After toiling on the special for 6 months, Melendez and Mendelsohn screened it for CBS executives just 3 weeks before it was set to air. The mood in the room was less than enthusiastic. The network found it slow and lacking in energy, telling Melendez they weren't interested in any more specials. To add insult, someone had misspelled Schultz in the credits, adding a T to his last name. Schultz himself thought the whole project was a disaster due to the crude animation. Number 11, half the country watched A Charlie Brown Christmas. Viewers weren't nearly as cynical about Charlie Brown's holiday woes as the corporate benefactors. Preempting a 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time episode of The Munsters, A Charlie Brown Christmas pulled a 50 share, meaning half of all households with a television turned on were watching it. That amounted to roughly 15 million people, behind only Bonanza. CBS finally acknowledged it was a winner, but not without one of the executives getting in one last dig and telling Mendelsohn that his aunt in New Jersey didn't like it. Number 12, A Charlie Brown Christmas killed aluminum tree sales. Aluminum Christmas trees were marketed beginning in 1958 and enjoyed fairly strong sales by eliminating pesky needles and tree sap. But the annual airings of A Charlie Brown Christmas swayed the public the way they thought. In the special, Charlie Brown refuses to get a fake tree. Viewers began to do the same, and the product was virtually phased out by 1969. The leftovers of these aluminum trees are now collector's items. And number 13, there's a live action play version of A Charlie Brown Christmas. Okay, that I think some people know this. Number 14, in 2015, the voice of Charlie Brown was arrested. Peter Robbins continued voicing Charlie Brown until he turned 13 years old, at which point puberty prohibited him from continuing. In November 2015, the 59-year-old Robbins pleaded guilty to making criminal threats against a mobile home park manager and a sheriff. According to CBS, The troubled former actor claimed that schizophrenia and bipolar disorder led him to make the threats. He was sentenced to 4 years and 8 months in prison. There you go, guys. That's very interesting. So there you go, your 14 festive facts about a Charlie Brown Christmas. Happy Vlogmas Day 12, and I will see you tomorrow.